Greetings from the German capital and a warm welcome to our Highlights edition, which this time around shapes up with the following top stories. Perfect pairs, why French pastries and high-end shoes make for the ideal couple. Vintage aircraft, a German family business restores historic planes. And Nordic Notes presenting a Finnish symphony based on the nation's DNA. Pastries and shoes, two things that certainly have serious addiction potential. And Tal Spiegel could and has, in fact, written a book about it. The graphic designer / pastry chef is currently hot stuff on Instagram, where he artfully combines his two fetish objects, so the most creative pastries in Paris and dynamite footwear. Well, how the two things first appeared in one frame is brilliantly anecdotal, but once they did, he knew that the possibilities were endless.
Colourful and a little crazy. Pastries in every shade imaginable, with shoes to match. The photos highlight the rich variety of the Paris patisseries and the fashion world. They're the creation of Tal Spiegel. He tours the patisseries of Paris in search of inspiration. A dream job for a man with a sweet tooth.
Every 2 minutes you have a place, you have so much places to see, and you have so much places to get inspired by, and it changes all the time, and it's really like, this is why I said it's like living the pâtisserie, because it's really a part of your daily life here.
Originally from Israel, Tal used to be a graphic designer but retrained as a pastry chef. When he first came to Paris a couple of years ago, he was fascinated by the colours, textures and geometric patterns of the desserts. Today he's looking for a pink pastry.
This macaron is filled with rose petal cream, lychee and fresh raspberries.
Tal usually takes his photos right outside shops. He tries to get a neutral background, so the entire focus is on the pastry and the shoes. He then uploads the photo to his Instagram account, Deserted in Paris.
I think the idea for Dessert in Paris started by accident when I was exploring the world of patisserie in Paris, and I really wanted to remember each cake I try, so I took a photo, and just one day I discovered that the cake that I bought was matching my shoes. I tried to take a photo, people really liked it, and from there on it's all history.
He now has around 150,000 followers. Almost every day he posts a new shoe pastry.
Sometimes it looks like a snapshot, it looks like something very easy, but actually there's a lot of work behind photos, creating the photos, visiting the chefs and visiting the places. But I always make sure that there is like a variety of places, of colors, of creation. So each day will be different and will give you a totally different aspect and experience of Paris.
No easy task, especially as he always needs new shoes. He now has over 200 pairs and he's constantly buying more. Each pair needs to be especially colourful. He's a regular at this Paris boutique, and they know exactly what he's looking for.
My love for shoes started way before, back when I was living in Tel Aviv. As a graphic designer, I always had this appeal for very graphic and colorful shoes, so I was collecting them. And when I came to Paris, I discovered there's like more colors and more shapes, so it just grew with Dessert in Paris.
His latest purchase is immediately turned into a photo. He now knows lots of pastry chefs in Paris who provide him with cakes. Öland is one of them. Tal used to bake his own pastries, but now he focuses solely on creating photos for Instagram. That's where Öland first saw his work.
I said to Sebastian, look at this guy. Smart, you know? We were thinking he brings something new, you know? Because he's not only taking a picture of cake and got the idea to take a cake with the same color of the shoes. And I said, yeah, it's like art, you know?
His first mango pastry soon appears on Tal's Instagram account, matched with yet another new pair of shoes. Tal recently published his own patisserie book, featuring the best of his 700+ photos.
I think the cakes that are always more graphic or more different would get more attention. For example, I had the Hokusai Eclair by Fouchon, and that one went like crazy, or the Rubik's Cube by Thierry Grolet. So it's always like if a chef creates something that's a little different and something that people are not used to see, it will go through the roof. But I think like usually people are so happy to see creations from Paris, so I can say that most pictures are considered successful.
Paris pastries and shoes. Clearly a winning combination.
It was late summer in 1991 when a couple hiking in the Italian Alps made an astonishing discovery. An ancient mummy frozen into the ice and naturally preserved, who later made headlines as Ötzi the Iceman. Well, experts then confirmed that he'd been lying there for over 5,000 years, the oldest natural human mummy in Europe. And what's more, he appeared to have been murdered. Well, now a brand new film postulates what might have happened in the Iceman's last days and hours.
He's lost everything. His village is in flames, his family dead. And the perpetrator's gone. So the man vows to take revenge and pursue the culprits. That's how the producers of the movie Iceman imagined Ötzi's fate.
I was looking for a mythical figure from our region to tell a universal story. So I also wanted to pick a character that's not already known inside and out, where you have to deliver all those facts.
But Ötzi, the naturally mummified Stone Age man, isn't a complete unknown. His frozen body's kept at -6 degrees Celsius at the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology, Bolzano. When it was found, scientists were jubilant. By analyzing the contents of his stomach, they reconstructed his path across the Alps. And they found an arrowhead in Ötzi's shoulder. The Iceman was murdered.
Before I started writing, I tried to read all the literature on the subject. Then I wrote the first draft. I always wanted the story to be plausible, no matter what actually occurred. That was my aim, and I kept it until the end.
The result is a movie about man's perennial fight for survival, at a time when death loomed large. German actor Jürgen Vogel plays Ötzi. It was his first time portraying a Stone Age man.
It was a challenge. I'd read everything and knew how strenuous it would be in the mountains, in the cold. That it'd be physically demanding. I like that. To me, this story was like a thriller, set in the Alps, 5,300 years ago. A revenge story.
In addition, Vogel wasn't allowed to speak German in the movie. Only a fantasy language based on an early dialect which used to be spoken in the Alps.
Ritam Nehelanu. Ritam Melka. Ritam Nehelanu. Ritam Melka.
A linguist developed the fantasy language especially for the film, although there's not that much dialogue.
It's like archetypical acting. It's like painting. You've got a picture and everyone interprets it differently, but it still captures a mood. That has to do with the colors. So that's what acting without speaking is like, and I like it.
And nature itself posed a further challenge. The actual site of Ötzi's demise, South Tyrol's Alps, are beautiful, but unpredictable.
We were lucky. We didn't lose a single day due to weather problems. Like the snowstorm up on the glacier, which can be seen in the last quarter of the film. 3 days earlier, there was no snow there. It looked like the Canary Islands, but once we arrived, it started snowing. We were lucky.
Starting November 30th, the fruits of this hard labor hit the silver screen, and viewers can finally learn whether or not Ötzi got his revenge.
Well, on any given day, there are tens of thousands of airplanes crisscrossing the skies, and that's, of course, just here in Europe. And so it's hardly surprising that people don't pay much attention to all that noise going on overhead, unless, of course, it sounds completely unfamiliar. And it turns out that there is a vintage plane in the air, like something out of a film. Well, Meyer Motors in southern Germany is a highly reputed address when it comes to restoring historic aircraft, and the tale of their family business is also worth telling.
This plane's first owner flew it right around the world after purchasing the Piper PA-12 in 1947. Today, mechanic Erich Meyer is going to pilot the American aircraft under the watchful eye of his father Elmar and his sister Annie. That sound is music to the ears of airplane enthusiasts.
It's a passion, definitely. It takes you back to the roots of flying, to the simplicity of planes, and the lightness, too.
The Meyers are all fascinated with flying.
What my son is doing is just great. The whole family flies. That's the nicest thing ever.
Daughter Annie Meyer is also training to be an aircraft mechanic. She's one of the few women to pursue this profession.
Flying is an adventure. You can see the world from above. It's peaceful up there. You're a little bit closer to heaven.
Erich Meyer has loved planes like this supercruiser since childhood.
For my birthday, my uncle would always give me a round-trip flight as a present. I was even allowed to steer. That went on for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. There was nothing better.
Today, Uncle Achim is a professional pilot and Meyer Motors flight instructor. Together with his brother Elmar, he runs the family business, which specializes in restoring historical airplanes. The brothers founded the business a decade ago, but the Meyers were restoring and flying vintage aircraft long before that. It all started with their father, a farmer who owned vineyards.
He said we need a plane to spray the grapevines. And the barn had to be reconstructed, enlarged, to make room for the plane. And our mother and my brother, we all worked on it.
Back in 1965, his father paid 1,200 Deutschmarks for this Wieseler Storch.
My father's problem was that he was also disabled. He only had one arm. People said he was being stupid, that a disabled man couldn't and shouldn't fly. It was impossible. But he did. And in 1974, he became the first disabled person in Germany to get his pilot's license. My brother and I went up with him regularly as children, and that's how we caught the flying bug.
The brothers even experienced a crash with their father. The plane was totaled, but that didn't dampen their passion for flying. 25 years ago, the brothers bought an aircraft of their own. Today, Meyer Motors employs more than 20 people. In 2011, they found this 1950 Hawker Sea Fury at an air show. The propeller plane could go almost as fast as a fighter jet at the time.
Achim and I were in Reno when the plane crashed. The pilot ran out of fuel just before hitting the runway. The plane was destroyed. I read my brother's thoughts and said, we'll buy it and reconstruct it again.
Numerous rare or famous flying machines now stand in the hangar or the workshop. Many of them belong to clients, like this P-51 Mustang. Annie Meyer is currently working on a Messerschmitt built in 1934.
When you know that you're handling things that are around 100 years old, it's kind of awe-inspiring. And when you achieve something after working on it for so long, when a piece finally fits and you attach it to the fuselage, it's pretty cool.
Still, no one in the family expected that Annie would wind up doing her professional training here.
It was the last thing I wanted to do. I always said, Dad, I'm not going to work for you. Then I took a gap year and went abroad and noticed how much I missed helping out and getting my hands dirty. After thinking about it a lot, I decided to do it after all. And I don't regret it. I'd do it all over again.
Her brother Eric already knew as a child that he wanted to become an aircraft mechanic. Today, he's one of Annie's instructors.
I must say that I was really apprehensive. But as we know how to solve problems from being siblings, I'd say we make a pretty good team.
We have a lot of fun at work. I thought it would be a lot worse.
Sabine Meyer has managed the office from the start. She always brought her children along to work.
They had their little bicycles with them, and their wading pool stood outside. They helped clean the planes and even built their own from cardboard boxes. They had a lot of fun.
The Meyers are a family who are still having fun, ensuring that vintage aircraft stay in the air for years to come.
Well, anyone who's ever been up to Finland knows that it's a nation of extremes and very strong contrasts, be it with its seasons, its people, or its natural heritage. And this year, Finland is celebrating a century of independence. And to mark that occasion, the country's official tourism portal, Visit Finland, commissioned a piece of music that delves into the national character more deeply than ever before. Well, the Symphony of Extremes, as it's called, was created by setting the Finnish genotype to music. And so let's see what that sounds like.
The Symphony of Extremes is as diverse as Finland itself. Eikka Toppanen, cellist and songwriter of Finnish band Apocalyptica, based the music on DNA samples from his countrymen. These people in Helsinki have never heard the symphony, but they suspect what it might sound like.
Music from Finnish DNA would probably be kind of sad and melancholic, like a lot of Finnish people are.
If it sounds like Finnish people and they're like the Finnish people's soul, it's gonna be pretty heavy.
Eikka Toppanen is the most prominent member of Apocalyptica. For years, the cello metal band has been one of Finland's most popular musical exports. He's composed dozens of songs for Apocalyptica, but he's never used genetic material as an inspiration before. It took him a while to get used to the idea for the Symphony of Extremes.
Writing music from out of DNA, it's kind of, I don't know what it means, to be honest. That was my first thought, but then I thought that actually the idea sounds very interesting, and that's why I decided to start to figure out what it could be and what it actually means. There were so many different possibilities to approach the whole idea that that's why I felt it's a big challenge, and therefore I wanted to be part of it.
Finland is a country of contrasts. In Lapland, the midnight sun shines for 70 consecutive days. In winter, there's no sun at all for more than 50 days straight. At Helsinki's Institute for Molecular Medicine, Finland, scientists have spent years studying Finnish DNA. Researcher Jana Sarala and her colleagues constantly uncover typical variants at the margins of the country.
We know that there are some variants in the Finnish genome that are more common in the northern part of Finland or more common in the western part of Finland or eastern part of Finland. The differences are not huge, but if you look at the right regions in the genome, you can actually tell from which part of the Finland a Finnish individual is from.
Data composer Jonathan Middleton, who teaches at Finland's Tampere University, translated these DNA variants into simple sequences of musical notes. Eikka Toppanen then spent long hours in his studio combining those sequences to express a sense of Finland.
For me, it was also important to understand the mental genetics of Finnish people and the history of the nation and where we come from and why Finnish DNA is so diverse. And I also wanted to bring into the music, the feel that my main goal was that when Finnish people, they hear this piece, that they feel it's very Finnish. And that was for me equally important than these letter chains, you know, because these are DNA chains, they're basically just letters and nothing else.
Toppanen worked hard to ensure that the various regions of Finland could be recognized within the music.
This is maybe kind of north, you know, the tundra with a lot of space, airy space and quietness and stuff like that. This riff, this is directly from one Y chromosome chain.
The Symphony of Extremes has now premiered in Helsinki, and Finnish audiences can find out if they can recognize their own DNA in the music.
And to round off the show, we're headed now to Sweden's favourite holiday island, and that is Öland. It's about 137 kilometres long, but only 16 kilometres wide, and so it boasts lots of beach. And because it's in the southeast of the country, apparently the most hours of sunshine. So its population of about 24,000 swells to about 10 times that in the summer. And that's why we thought the best time to go is definitely off-season.
For most visitors, a trip to the island usually begins with a drive across Öland Bridge. The island is a tremendously popular summer destination for sun-starved Swedes, but its natural beauty is best experienced when fall sets in. The weather gets rougher, and peace and quiet descend on Öland. There's a lighthouse at each end of the 137-kilometer-long coast. The one at the northern point is nicknamed Tall Erik.
Öland has a long-time maritime tradition, and the lighthouses are remnants of that history. Currents around the island are tricky, so there are not just the two big lighthouses, but also many smaller ones along the coast.
The wooden windmills that dot the landscape are typical of the region. Most of them are out of service, but time was they turned year-round in the Baltic breeze. Windmills were long key to agricultural operations here.
Just about every farmer on the island put up a windmill on his farm to cover his own energy needs. In the heyday in the mid-19th century, there were some 2,000 windmills on Öland.
Öland has been inhabited since the early Stone Age. Rune stones testify to the Vikings' presence. Borgholm Castle was built from a 12th century rampart and long served as a key fortress in battles against Denmark. Today, all that remains is a ruin. Soliden Palace is located nearby. Known for its good air, the spot was selected for a royal summer residence by Sweden's Queen Victoria in the early 20th century. The gardens are a major attraction.
The oldest part of the palace garden consists of an English park and Italian garden. It too was commissioned by Queen Victoria. Then there are later additions. We take good care of the park to ensure it looks as good in the future as it did in the past.
The expansive estate continues to be used by the Swedish royal family as a vacation retreat to this day. Every year, the family gets together to celebrate the birthday in July of Crown Princess Victoria.
The royal family spends 8 to 10 weeks a year on Soliden. The palace and Öland are the starting point for their excursions. We always fly the royal flag so that everyone knows a member of the royal family is here.
A half-hour's drive south, the restaurant Arentorps serves up local specialties. Kroppkakor are bacon-filled potato dumplings. They prepare hundreds here every day by hand.
The dumplings have a filling made from cured and diced pork belly, seasoned with clove, pepper, and onion. And after they're filled, we boil them for an hour. They're served with butter, cream, and lingonberries.
The perfect way to round off a long, wind-swept walk on the beach. The Swedes' favorite island with its raw and picturesque landscapes.
And that's all for this edition, so I hope you enjoyed it. And until we meet again, alles Gute aus Berlin und tschüss.